Islamic law will govern Islamic Muslims, and even if there's a Sharia law, those who are not of the Islamic faith, that does not apply to them. Yet some of the recordings would say if 755, will not pass, they're going to be lashing, and they're going to be caning and cutting off the head and so on and so forth. It was extremely ugly.
And I think even furthermore, just as all other forms of religious arbitration or religious law, even Muslims can choose not to have Sharia govern their lives in America. This has to be consenting individuals that actually seek a religious arbitration or actually engage in a religious contract or a religious agreement or any agreement that involves some form of need for religious definition or interpretation. Our courts actually endorse and support for religious arbitration. The courts cannot take a role in defining what a religious tradition is. So state courts and federal courts actually encourage people to engage in religious arbitration when there is a conflict with respect to a religious issue, and then the court simply enforce that arbitration. So even Muslims have to agree to be contractually obligated to follow some form of Sharia.
Could I make a point here? I think it's important when it comes to the First Amendment to realize that our law makes a distinction to a certain extent between religious beliefs and religious behaviors. Okay, religious beliefs are a form of free speech, and so they're absolutely protected. Religious behaviors can be limited by the law, according to the Supreme Court. The famous case of American Indians smoking peyote during religious services. The Supreme Court ruled in a famous case, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, something like that, that was not a protected activity under the First Amendment because the state had an overriding interest in protecting people from the harmful effects of drug usage. Folks can't in a worship service expose their children to poisonous snakes, okay, under the First Amendment. If the state says you can't do that, you can't use the First Amendment to do that. And so, I mean, I suppose there may be a fear out there that Muslims would, in this country would somehow, under Sharia law, make it possible to do horrifying or inhumane things to people, I suppose, because of, what they hear from maybe other places in the world or whatever. I don't know. But those kinds of things would not be permissible under state law. And so that shouldn't be a concern, even if there was a desire to do those kinds of things, which I know there's not. But it would not be permissible under state law. The problem is you have so many people who actually believe in this state that these folks here are wanting to establish an Islamic theocracy in the United States that would do away with all of our constitutional rights and our law and set up some kind of, I don't know, Iranian Ayatollah moving into the governor's mansion.
That's what they said about Kennedy. If Kennedy would win,
that's right.
The Pope will be at the White House.
That's right.
Politics of fear, McCarthyism at its best.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And there were a lot more Catholics in 1960 than there are Muslims in Oklahoma in 2011.
Exactly.
So anyway, but you're exactly right. It's all about fear, and it's all about inspiring people out of fear to secure their own lives, but it's always at the expense of people who, interestingly enough, are always in the minority, because it's always easy for bullies to beat up.
And I don't think we can emphasize it enough, but just to mention again that symbiotic connection between our Constitution and Islamic law. Not only are people of any faith not allowed to engage in a practice that's illegal or unconstitutional, but in the case of Sharia as well, one of the main aspects of Sharia is respecting the law of your land. So as Muslims, we are actually mandated to follow the law of our land. So not only is it illegal for us to do things that are against our Constitution, but religiously, we also believe we can't do things to offend the law of the land.